2 weeks before my wedding, I received a shocking confession from my best friend, Lucy. She told me that the entire reason my fiancé, Erwin, and I were getting married was because of her throwaway account. Everyone involved was aware of my main social media profile, but this hidden truth changed everything for me. For days, I have been restless, unable to sleep, overwhelmed with emotions. I needed to unload this heavy weight on my heart, or it felt like I might burst. My wedding is scheduled for the 19th, and I had just celebrated my bachelorette party last Saturday, which Lucy organized. I had an amazing time with my bridesmaids. We danced, had shots, and they were all so thrilled for me to marry the love of my life, Erwin. We have been together for 3 wonderful years. After the party, everyone was in high spirits, and we all returned home, leaving Lucy and me in our Airbnb. While most of the group was thoroughly intoxicated, I was only slightly tipsy, so I volunteered to help Lucy clean up, knowing I'd be staying the night with her. As we cleaned, I noticed Lucy was unusually quiet, which was out of character for her. She had been so lively during the party that I assumed she was just tired. I told her I could finish the cleanup so she could rest, and she retreated to the bedroom. Once I was done with the dishes, she returned to the kitchen with a serious look on her face. She said she needed to tell me something, so I stopped what I was doing and turned my full attention to her. What she revealed shattered my world. Lucy apologized, explaining that she never expected Erwin to propose to me because their connection started as a bet gone wrong. Confused, I urged her to elaborate. She disclosed that when I first introduced them, she and Erwin had made a bet. If he could convince me to marry him, she would date him exclusively. I was stunned. They had been secretly dating before I met Erwin, and their relationship was toxic, filled with constant breakups. During one of those breaks, Lucy allowed Erwin to date other people, which is when he and I crossed paths. I asked her why she was only coming forward with this now. She admitted she felt guilty and didn't want to hurt me, but she also didn't want to shoulder all the blame. Lucy had been trying to convince Erwin to confess to me, but he had refused, claiming that the bet was a thing of the past because he had genuinely fallen in love with me. When I asked if Erwin was aware of her feelings for him, she said no, but if I allowed her, she would confess her emotions. That was the last straw for me. I couldn't process it all. I felt drained. Even the thought of confronting her made me want to scream. I felt like a pawn in their twisted game, played and betrayed by the 2 people I trusted most. For 3 days, I've been grappling with these revelations, too bewildered to speak to anyone, not even Erwin, who was in Hong Kong at the time. Lucy hadn't reached out, and I suspected she hadn't told Erwin either. With the wedding looming just 2 weeks away, I felt paralyzed. How was I supposed to face this reality? To add context, Lucy and I have been friends for 11 years, ever since high school. We even attended the same university but pursued different degrees. While we had a falling out during our busy college years, we reconnected after graduation. However, our friendship felt different. Lucy was no longer as open with me. When I asked her about her love life, she claimed she wasn't ready for anything serious, only casual flings. I admit, I hadn't kept up with her romantic entanglements, caught up in my own corporate world. As I read through the comments on my post, I appreciated the support and perspective from others. Maybe it was my emotional state that led me to gloss over crucial details. English isn't my first language, and some nuances may have been lost in translation. But now, with everything swirling in my head, I need to decide what to do. I can't keep this bottled up, and the thought of going through with the wedding without confronting these issues feels impossible. How do I navigate this betrayal, and what do I tell Erwin? The clock is ticking, and I'm running out of time. Lucy and I don't see each other often since she spends a lot of time traveling for work. Sometimes, she stays on a remote island or at the beach for a month or so our time together is pretty rare. However, whenever she's in my city, we always make a point to get together. Just to clarify, Lucy isn't my maid of honor. That honor goes to my sister, who is currently tied up with exams at university. So, Lucy took the reins on planning the bachelorette party. When I mentioned that I introduced Lucy to Erwin, I was referring to Erwin as my boyfriend to Lucy. I hope that clears up any confusion. As for the timeline of Lucy and Erwin's relationship, I'm still piecing that together. Hey everyone. A lot of you have been messaging me for an update, so I thought it was time to fill you in, especially for those who reached out. First, a little backstory about how Erwin and I met. We crossed paths at a company event that my company hosted. Erwin's company was one of our clients. We hit it off at the afterparty and exchanged numbers. A few days later, he added me on Facebook, and I noticed that we had some mutual friends. I asked him if he knew any of them, and he confirmed that he had met them during his internship, although they weren't close. I checked with Lucy, and she confirmed the same thing, so I didn't think much of it at the time. Erwin and I began dating casually without any labels, just seeing where things would lead. We were both seeing other people at that time, but once we decided we wanted to make things official, we ended those casual flings, and that's pretty much how our story began. I really appreciate everyone who reached out to me. Your kind words made me realize that I needed to think about my situation more logically. So, I did just that. Erwin and I talked about everything when I picked him up from the airport yesterday. I told him about Lucy's confession, and he went pale but managed to stay calm. He encouraged me to ask whatever I wanted, promising he would answer truthfully. To summarize our conversation. First, did Erwin know I was Lucy's best friend when we met? The answer is no. They hadn't talked much about their personal lives during their time together, although he knew my name, which is the same as Lucy's best friend. When we met, he didn't make the connection. Second, how long were they dating before I came into the picture? Erwin couldn't keep track because their relationship was pretty much on and off, but they had been casually seeing each other for about 4 months before we met. In his mind, they were never officially together since they didn't label their relationship. He did try to pursue her, but she kept messing with his emotions. When she allowed him to date during their breaks, he viewed it as an escape. Third, did they really make a bet on me? Yes, but he didn't take it seriously and didn't initiate it. Fourth, when did the bet happen? It was just a few days after I introduced Erwin to Lucy as my friend. He admitted that since we weren't exclusively dating yet, he was still seeing Lucy at that time. The idea for the bet came from Lucy, and it was her way of testing whether Erwin was mature enough for a serious relationship. Fifth, when did Erwin's relationship with Lucy end? It ended about a month before we officially became a couple. He broke things off with her because he was starting to fall for me. Lucy took it well, and he didn't even mention the bet when they ended things. 6. Why did Lucy bring up the bet now? After we announced our engagement, Lucy started talking about it. Erwin admitted he had forgotten all about it until she reminded him. When she reached out to confess, he didn't take it seriously and refused to engage with her. Finally, is he aware of Lucy's feelings? No, he genuinely believes that Lucy is happy for us. Now, I'm at a crossroads. I believe Erwin, but I can't shake the feeling that the foundation of our relationship is built on a bet, no matter how trivial it might seem. That bothers me, and I'm not sure how to move forward from here. The moment felt heavy with uncertainty. Can we rebuild trust from here? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, a mix of hope and apprehension hanging in the air. I don't know, but I'm willing to try, he replied, his gaze steady. Erwin had always been a great boyfriend, and it pained me to even contemplate making a decision that could alter the course of our lives forever. After all, what if I made a harsh choice and ended up regretting it? But there was a stark realization that loomed over us: we needed to call off the wedding. Erwin had been honest about his feelings. He told me he'd understand if I no longer wanted to go through with our plans. He asked me to consider our relationship. His love for me was evident. He was willing to do anything to earn back my trust. Then, there was the revelation about Lucy. I learned that she had tried to reach out to Erwin in the days following the bachelorette party, but he had missed her calls. I hadn't heard from her either, and honestly, I was over it. Many friends had pointed out that Lucy seemed to be sabotaging our relationship, trying one last time to win Erwin for herself. It hurt, though. After 11 years of friendship, seeing it end this way felt like a betrayal. As I reflected on everything, I decided this would be my last update on the situation. Moving forward, it was clear that the next steps were entirely up to Erwin and me. I felt grateful for everyone who had listened and shared their thoughts. In a moment of self-deprecation, I joked, "Sorry for my English, it's not my native language." But honestly, we needed some native English speakers to apologize for their language skills too. Have you seen some of the posts online? I turned the question back to my friends. What do you all think? What would you do if you were in my shoes? It seems like Erwin wasn't really invested in the whole situation, but now that I know the truth, it stings a little. But from what I understand, he had good intentions. After all, aside from this incident, he had been a great boyfriend. And then, as if to cleanse the air, I shifted gears to another story. So, story number 2, I made a huge mistake asking out a deaf girl. As a university student learning American Sign Language, ASL, I had been studying for about a year. It felt like a daunting journey at first, but I gradually started attending ASL socials last semester. Last month, I met a girl who was deaf, and we hit it off instantly. She was adorable, and I was a bundle of nerves, but we exchanged numbers and began chatting regularly. Then came the fateful lunch at the cafeteria. I took a deep breath and asked her if she wanted to go on a date. Her reaction was immediate. She looked both angry and sad, and before I could comprehend, she stormed off, leaving me confused and unable to reach her through texts. Feeling defeated, I turned to my professor for advice. I was crushed to learn that my question hadn't been about dating at all. In fact, I had inadvertently asked her if she wanted to have sex. I facepalmed, calling myself an idiot. Update: Hey everyone, I didn't expect my last post to gain so much attention, but thank you to everyone who shared advice or their own stories, they really helped me feel less alone. Though, on a different note, I did receive some creepy DMs, so I want to clarify, yes, my crush and I are both women, despite what some people might say. So, back to the update. After I posted, I texted her right away to explain my mistake. It turned out that when I signed the word sex, she had signed it back to clarify, and I, in my confusion, said yes instead of retracting my question. Thankfully, she found my awkwardness endearing and forgave me but made it clear not to solicit her again. Encouraged, I took the plunge and asked her out for coffee this weekend. I was extra careful this time, making sure to ask over text to avoid any more misunderstandings. To my joy, she said yes. So, our first official date is set for this weekend, and I couldn't be more excited. We kept texting afterward, discussing everything from our classes to our favorite movies, and with each message, I felt my heart race a little faster. If we're both not drinking, then I guess I don't have to worry about messing up the sign for alcohol. I joked about it, and she sent back 4 laughing emojis, definitely a good sign if you ask me. Now, for a final update, this isn't a bad one at all. A lot of people wanted to know how things were going, so I thought I'd share one last update. First off, I want to thank everyone for the kind words on my last couple of posts. So, here's the scoop, my girlfriend and I have been a couple for several months now, and things couldn't be better. She's been teaching me some really fun signs that my professor doesn't cover in class. Honestly, it's hard to concentrate when she's trying to show me something new. I just get distracted by how adorable she is. But she always says that excuse stopped working after I used it for the second time. I went to her place for Christmas Eve dinner, where I met her family for the first time. I was pretty nervous, worried that they might think it was too soon for me to be part of such a special occasion. But to my surprise, her parents actually asked her to invite me. I think they thought it would help ease my nerves, but honestly, the pressure to impress was pretty intense. Her brother can hear, while both of her parents are deaf, and I was definitely feeling the butterflies in my stomach. Still, I figured this was good practice and an experience I needed to embrace. I think I made a decent impression, which felt great. After dinner, her brother and I hung out, bonding over video games and geeking out about Baldur's Gate 3. My girlfriend teasingly remarked that she felt like a third wheel during our conversation, which made me laugh. Anyway, that's the update. Things are going wonderfully, and I really love my girlfriend. I'm so grateful to everyone who offered advice and encouragement, pushing me to reconnect with her when I almost gave up out of embarrassment. I'm so glad I didn't let that stop me. And you know what? This little story has a happy ending, no sadness or anger to be found. Isn't that refreshing? Now, I'm curious, how would you all feel about dating someone who is deaf if you didn't know any sign language? Would you take the time to learn it to connect with the person, or would you just think, nah, not worth my time? For me, I honestly don't think I would. It's not that I have anything against deaf people, but I tend to struggle when it comes to picking up new languages. Now on to the next story. I'm a 31-year-old woman, and I'm starting to feel uncomfortable about the relationship between my husband, who's 29, and my sister, who is 28. 8 months ago, my sister moved back to town after being away for a decade. A bit of backstory: she left for college and never returned, which caused us to drift apart. We spoke maybe once a year, and I hadn't seen her in person for 4 years. I've been married to my husband for 8 years, 3 of which we spent as a married couple. Throughout our relationship, my sister has only met him twice. He's a quiet and serious guy, opening up only to me and a select few friends. When my sister moved back and struggled to find a job, I thought it would be nice to ask my husband if he could help her find something at his company since they work in similar fields. Fast forward to now, and they're actually in the same department at work. Lately, my husband has been acting more distant towards me, but he insists everything is fine whenever I ask him about it. We had our traditional family Christmas meal yesterday, and at first, he tried to avoid it, which was unusual for him. I was really confused by this. After a bit of convincing, he agreed to join us. Throughout the dinner, I noticed my sister pulling him aside a few times for deep conversations that seemed to ignore the rest of us. Each time I approached them, they would both jump a little, and when I asked what they were talking about, they'd always say it was about a work project nearing its deadline. As I watched them, I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something more going on. The more I thought about it, the more my stomach twisted in knots. I couldn't tell if it was my overactive imagination or if there really was something brewing beneath the surface. I had been feeling uneasy about my husband's behavior for a while, but it all came to a head one night. As we were hosting a few friends at our home, I noticed something strange. At one point, he got up to grab another drink. My sister was sitting in a chair near the kitchen door, and he had to walk past her to get there. As he approached, she reached out her hand, and he actually caressed her palm and lightly grabbed her fingers as he walked by. She looked up at him with a bright smile, and he returned her gaze with a nod of acknowledgement. It made me feel a little sick. The moment he disappeared from view, she turned her head and smirked at me, a smug expression that didn't sit right. When dinner time rolled around, most of our guests sat at the main table, but my sister chose to sit at a small side table, isolated from everyone else. I grabbed my plate and joined the main table, only to see that he had chosen to sit with her. I suggested he take the seat next to me, but he insisted he preferred where he was. Feeling uneasy, I decided to join them. What started as animated conversation between the two of them quickly fell into an awkward silence as we ate. Later that evening, I asked him about the hand-holding, and he brushed it off, saying it was just a casual greeting, like a high five. I was skeptical. It didn't look like a high five to me. He insisted it was nothing more than that. Until then, I had never had any reason to doubt his fidelity, but this incident sent my mind racing with suspicion. Another thing that bothered me was the way he interacted with her compared to our conversations. With me, his responses were short, light-hearted, and often distracted. But with her, he was fully engaged, hanging on her every word, offering thoughtful responses. Their interactions had an intensity that I hadn't seen from him in a long time. They often exchanged glances while texting on their phones at the same time. Maybe it was nothing, but it made me feel uneasy. A few days later, I finally decided to confront him about it. I asked him if he would accompany me on a weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains, where we could disconnect from the world. I made sure there was no cell phone service because I wanted his full attention. The first night was incredible. It felt like we had rekindled our connection, and for a moment, I almost forgot my worries about my sister. The next morning, we cooked breakfast together, but he was unusually quiet. I suggested we take a walk to the nearby lake, and he agreed. Once we reached the lake, we found some large rocks to sit on. The silence between us stretched on, feeling like an eternity, until I finally summoned the courage to voice my concerns about his relationship with my sister. His face went pale as I spoke. To my horror, he confessed that he had fallen in love with her. It turned out their connection had deepened over the months they worked together. He admitted that they shared a lot in common and spent more time at work than he did at home with me. He told me he felt he could talk to her about anything, and it never felt tiring. He continued to say that he had never felt more alive than he did with her and that their physical affair had started back in October, while the emotional connection had begun in June. Hearing this crushed me. I could feel the betrayal wash over me in waves. He apologized for hurting me and deceiving me, and he acknowledged the immense pain he had caused. When I asked him what he wanted to do about it, his answer broke me: he no longer loved me. It was the most painful thing I had ever heard. He told me that the way he felt for her made him realize he had never felt that way for me. It shattered everything I thought I knew about our relationship and left me questioning how everything had unraveled so quickly. In the moment when he loved me the most, he told me that nothing could compare to what we had, yet he felt increasingly uncomfortable staying married to me. We agreed that our marriage was over, and it shattered my heart into pieces. We both submitted applications to transfer jobs to a different city within the same company. He generously offered to let me keep the house, but I turned him down. The house was filled with memories of us, and I couldn't bear the thought of living in a space that constantly reminded me of what we once shared. As we prepared to split our finances, he decided to give me more than I was entitled to, which only made the situation more complicated. We were getting ready to list the house for sale, and I kept myself busy packing up our lives while doing odd jobs like painting to freshen things up. He assured me that I could keep the full amount from the sale. New carpet and flooring were scheduled to be installed tomorrow, and the movers were coming this afternoon. I found a small house to start over, but I knew that healing would take time. My heart was heavy with grief. My sister, on the other hand, was handling the situation much less gracefully. She was reveling in it all, practically gloating. One day, she accidentally sent me a photo of them together, and I could see the happiness radiating off her face, as if she had won some kind of prize by stealing him away from me. She even changed her profile picture to a smug selfie, showcasing a moment where he was kissing her forehead. I couldn't take it anymore and unfollowed her on TikTok. Now, she was posting videos and photos of their time together, some from months ago that felt like daggers to my heart. I asked him to please speak to her about stopping the posts, but he assured me he would talk to her, yet nothing seemed to change. To protect my heart, I decided to step away from social media, except for Reddit, where I could anonymously vent my feelings. Meanwhile, my mother sided with my sister, arguing that she wasn't posting those things to hurt me, and that my sister deserved her happiness. "It's your fault for looking," my mom said, chastising me for being so petty. As for my father, he took a neutral stance, declaring he wanted to stay out of it. He acknowledged that what my sister did wasn't right but emphasized that she was still his daughter. He assured me he wouldn't accept their relationship but would always be there for me, no matter what I needed. I respected his decision, even if I knew it wasn't easy for him either. I'm grateful for the kind words and advice I've received, even though I might not have included every detail. My mind is still foggy from everything that has happened, but it's one of those moments where I find myself reflecting on the dynamics between my sister and me throughout our lives. I can't shake the feeling that she pursued him mainly because we were married. Sure, she might have feelings for him, but it felt like she took greater pride in the fact that she stole him away from me. She accidentally sent photos that seemed all too intentional, capturing their cute moments together. It's infuriating. And to my mom, you're not off the hook either. If he claims he's happy, then I guess everyone deserves to find someone who makes them feel that way, but the way this all unfolded is deeply messed up. He had an affair, and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I can't help but anticipate an update a year from now when things inevitably go wrong in their relationship. I'll be waiting for that day. Thank you for listening, and goodbye for now.